Okay, guys, I want to talk a little bit about the assignment because one of the hardest parts about the assignment is excuse me, the analysis part, right? We're really good at saying, okay, this is my belief about reading, writing, or learning. And you want to get specific with that belief. Like, yeah, you might say, I think reading is boring, but why? You can get to more specific, like, oh, I think reading is boring because I don't think it's interesting. That's a stronger thing to work with than just it's boring, right? If I start with like, oh, I hate reading because I think I'm a bad reader, okay, but why? Oh, because I think that you have to pass tests to be a good reader, and I've never been able to pass tests. Okay, that gives us something more concrete. The more specific, the better, right? So we want to start with a belief, get specific. Ask yourself why, like once or twice to get to the more specific thing, right? So I go, oh, I think I'm a bad reader. Why? Because I think we have to pass tests to be good readers. Okay, that's the idea we work with. That's the belief, right? And you can go to a deeper level. Why? Why do you think you need to pass tests to be a good reader? Well, because that's how you show success. Okay, so good reading is tied to success in tests and that kind of stuff. Um, and then we go back to the experience. What moment in time made you believe that, right? Like I wasn't born thinking that. I had an experience. So what was the experience, or what were the several experiences that led me to that belief? For me, it was that moment in third grade when I failed my reading toss back in the day, or you guys would call it the star or the tax, depending on how old you are. But it's that standardized test that they start everybody in third grade. They start teaching you how to take that test. And I failed it that year. I passed the writing part, but I failed it. So I would go ahead and I would explain. The more detail, the better. Like I remember waking up that morning. Everyone was talking about this test, and I was nervous because I had tests before, but this one seemed like a big deal. The way the teachers were talking about it, and we were going to be separated from the class. Like we were going into the cafeteria, and they were going to have it timed, and so they had talked to us about it, but I wasn't too familiar with it, and it was nerve-wracking. I remember feeling sick that morning, and I was like a nervous kid. My stomach was always hurting in the mornings. I never ate breakfast, so I'd often like faint and pee. So I was already like really anxious about this test. Um, I remember the reading portions, not exactly like I couldn't tell you word for word what they were, but I remember them being like, here's like a little section, read it, and then try to find like what's the main idea. And I remember struggling, like it all seemed important to me. Um, and I would just fill in the little Scantron. The writing portion I had more control over, so I did really well in that section. And then I remember being done with the test and going about my day until they told us what the test results were. And I remember feeling really stupid. Because I got my results back and I couldn't understand why I had done so poorly on the reading. And back then it was like 1 to 4. 4 was like excellent and 1 was like underdeveloped. And I got like a 1 on the reading and a 4 on the writing. And I just thought that's weird. Um, and then it happened again in fourth grade. And I was like, okay. And then it happened again in fifth grade. And by then it was starting to affect like my confidence. And I remember saying things like, I guess I'm just weird or something. Um, yeah. And I think by the time I got to like seventh and eighth grade, I was pretty much done with reading. I knew that I couldn't do it. At least that's what I thought. And I didn't want to try anymore. So I really hated reading classes because I could never get it. Um, and it just led to me failing and feeling really stupid. All right, so that's my experience in detail. So I have my belief, I have my experience. Now I got to break down the experience. This is the analysis part. This is the part that gets students all the time. It's the trickiest part. So let me help you do the analysis. I'm going to share with you a little infographic that I made. But there's a couple ways we can think about analysis, right? The first way we can think about analysis is impact. You want to talk about the immediate impact that it had on you. What were your thoughts and feelings, and how did it affect your relationship to reading and writing? I kind of already did that, but I'll go back and do it again. When I think about the moment that I took that test, I remember feeling confused. I remember feeling like I wasn't sure. And I remember at some point I was just kind of like, okay, what if I just go down this row of buttons, this row of answers on the Scantron, just kind of fill out whatever. I'll try to randomize it. That was like in fifth grade. But I just remember every time I take this test, I didn't understand. I would read and they would ask me for things and I couldn't figure it out. At least I thought I was like, okay, maybe it's this first sentence or this third sentence that they're asking about. That was consistently wrong. And how I felt every time I would get my scores was pretty shitty. Like I remember feeling really sad, really, really disappointed in myself because I thought, you know, I thought I must be stupid if I can't get this, or there must be something really wrong with me because everyone else who can write well was also able to read well, and that wasn't happening for me. So how did it affect my relationship to reading? It negatively affected it. I started to hate reading and avoid it, especially with literature. It was really difficult for me to identify like important things when there was like characters and a whole story plot going on. It just does something that I didn't ever know how to do. Um, it was easier to do. I did find out as I went into like high school and college, I found myself being able to do it a little bit better when it was a nonfiction piece of writing. So I started to like nonfiction a little bit more, but it was still hard to get me to read. I avoided it as much as I could because I didn't want to face that failure. Right? So that was like the immediate impact and the how it impacted my relationship. Then, because I ended up doing long term, but how did it affect my relationship in that immediate point in time? That's the point in time I started to hate it. Long term, I started to avoid it because I really started thinking like if I have to be faced with reading something, I'm gonna have to face that failure, that feeling of stupid. I didn't want to do it. So I would actively avoid it whenever I could. And I would also kind of put on like that facade, like this is stupid, this is boring, I don't want to do it. Which actually also because I had that attitude, kind of like the too cool for reading or too cool for school kind of attitude. It also, I think, affected my relationship with my teachers because I think with that attitude, they kind of wrote me off, and instead of helping me, which is what I actually needed, they kind of just said, "Nah, she doesn't care," and that wasn't really what was going on. Like what was going on was that I was afraid. I was afraid to fail and to have people say, "Oh my God, this girl is dumb." So I would just say, "No, fuck this," you know. Um, and I think I wish my teachers would have caught on to that and said, "Oh, maybe she needs help," rather than to think that I didn't care. Um, yeah. So that's the impact analysis, right? We talk about immediately in that moment what was going on and just share your ideas. And it might get a little bit like all over the place like mine, but that's okay. That's a breakdown of the way that it affected me. And if you want to go a step deeper, which I encourage you guys, this is like the part like we're working our brain, we're getting ready for college level thinking. You want to go a step deeper? We can also think about, excuse me, other perspectives. So here's some questions that'll help us think about other perspectives. We can think about, I'm sorry, guys. And think about who else was there and step into their shoes and imagine how they saw the situation. So, no, we can never know exactly what other people are thinking, but we can have empathy and we can do a really good job of imagining how other people feel. We want to do a realistic imagining. So, when I look back at the other people that were there, my mom and dad were there, but they just wanted me to be happy. So if I think about like my mom, she would see my scores, but she never got mad at me or anything like that. She just wanted me to be happy. Um, so she would always be like, "It's okay, it's okay." I think she was afraid of hurting my self-confidence any more than I think I already was. I think of my teachers, I kind of did step into their shoes a little bit. I think they thought, looking like if I go into their shoes and they see my attitude, like when I see students with attitudes like that, I often sometimes jump to the assumption that they don't care, which is a mistake because when I look back and I was in that situation, it wasn't that I didn't care. I just I didn't want to look stupid. But and I can see how teachers would take it as the student doesn't care, so why bother? Um, so that's unfortunate. Um, and then I can also look at it from other, so that helps me kind of understand, like, okay, I can see how other people are seeing this. I can better understand what they think and feel in that moment. And it gives me a different perspective. Like maybe maybe we need to teach our kids to voice their discomfort or their fears with their teachers. I know it's a scary thing, and maybe we need to teach teachers how to be on the lookout for it. I don't know. Something there needs to change and happen. That's an interesting one. We can also look at it from like the goings on, like the actual like happenings, right? So what else was going on? Well, when I go back to my third grade moment, that's like the biggest thing is that I was they were taking me out of third grade English class to go to a gifted and talented writing class. And as I look back at that, they took me out of the class where they were teaching the kids how to read for the test and putting me in another class where they were encouraging me to write. And sure enough, what happened? I never learned how to read for the exam. And that's why I kept messing up. It wasn't because I was stupid or I didn't know. I never learned how to read fiction for a test, right? Like for those specific things that they ask for. Like they would say, like, where's the climax? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. And of course, because I didn't know what it was or how to find it, I just never got it. But what I did end up becoming was a really strong and confident writer. And that makes sense because they were taking me into a gifted and talented writing course where they encouraged me and supported me and talked to me about my writing. They really fostered it, but no one did that for my reading. Um, and so when I think about it, I was like, oh, as much as I think they had good intentions with that extracurricular activity, by pulling me out of class for it, they really screwed me over. That alone shaped my relationship to reading for the next like 20 years. And it wasn't until I had another major moment as a 20-year-old that I started to rethink my relationship to reading. And it's still kind of a little precarious, but so yeah. So that's another level of analysis, looking at it from different points of view. So that's what I want you to do. Now, do you have to do both? No, you could either do impact or other perspectives, or if you wanted to, you could do both. If you do both, you're going to get a much richer and deeper understanding of the situation. These are just ways to break down, to kind of further develop an understanding and break apart and see from all different little like angles and viewpoints. That's what analysis is. It's a breakdown. And so these are two ways to help you, excuse me, two ways to help you break down um, your experience. So I hope that that helps. I'm sorry that I was coughing so much. I don't know what's wrong with me. I hope that I'm better by the time I see you guys again. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I'm sometimes slower to respond on the weekends just because I'm sick right now. But I'm definitely going to be around Monday and Tuesday. So hit me up in my office hours if you have questions or need any help. Bye, guys.